Hey guys, in this video I want to share with you a few parts of the exterior detailing process where you might not get the results you want, explain to you why, and explain why it would have been helpful to know this earlier on in my detailing business. Guys, Luke here with Wilson Auto Detailing. I own a detailing business based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and an online training business where we take auto detailers from where they're at to scaling their business to real numbers where they can actually start to make some money. Now, the very first area that I want to highlight here is just the inner barrel of the wheels. Everybody knows that brake dust is corrosive, and so even on a nice new little Toyota Corolla like this, there's going to be brake dust on the interior of the wheel that probably will not come off even with Meguiar's Wheel Brightener, which is what I'm using here, diluted 5-to-1, which is an acidic cleaner, and it takes it off really, really well. Now, another thing that I want to point out here is that the brake dust that most of us cannot get off of the inner barrel of the wheel using an Easy Detail or a Speedmaster brush like you see me using here could be taken off if we actually removed the wheel and we took some more intense measures to the wheel. And so when I say that there is brake dust that's corroded into the metal that will not come off, it will not come off by these means, though it could come off technically if we took the wheel off and really went crazy. The reason I say this is just because this is an area where on this customer's car, they're not going to notice anything because the inner barrel of the wheel is black and it's not going to show that contrast of brake dust that has or has not been removed. But on any other kind of factory coated wheel, on like a Suburban or if really any car, right, that has just a classic kind of silver alloy clear coated metal, that's going to show the brake dust that does not come off. And so customers often see that and they kind of think, oh man, this was like a halfway done job. Why didn't you remove all that brake dust? Why didn't you clean the wheels properly? And so if you don't have that conversation on the front end, it can be problematic on the back end. Now, moving on to the next area that's important to talk about with the customer for the exact same reason. I am moving on to the pre-wash and the agitation wash stage, but you can see I'm taking a magic eraser into my soapy bucket, and I'm using that magic eraser very lightly on the inner part of where people grab the handle. The reason for this is because that area gets super scratched up because people's fingernails kind of hit the paint back there, and because you're always reaching, right, the back of your fingernails touch that, and it gets really scratched, and it looks like a bunch of scratches, even though it's actually just transfer, generally speaking, from people's fingernails, and so it can be easily wiped off with a tiny bit of really non-abrasive polish or even a magic eraser. Now, if you're taking a magic eraser too aggressively, you can abrade that area. But if you're careful, of course, it's a very easy way to remove that transfer. Now, as I move into the pre-washing and the washing stage, the next thing I want to highlight here is that if you are not using deionized water and you're going to inevitably have to fight the water spot battle, the areas that I like to remove water from the car first are the windows and the black trim that surrounds the windows. So a lot of times, detailers will allow the water to dry, okay, at a certain level, trying to take care of the water spots later, and they don't realize that when water spots get on certain areas of the car, they become a whole lot more difficult to remove than on other areas. So when you have that really smooth plastic trim separating the front window from the back window, or just the windows in general, and you get water spots on those areas, it can be a lot harder to remove. The reason for that is just because of the material. I can take Meguiar's Wheel Brightener diluted 5-to-1 to the paint, and I can remove water spots that are very surface level that way. I cannot take it to the glass, and I don't want to take it to the black trim. And so you have to take other measures if you get water spots on those areas. So when I am washing, and you'll see when I'm finished rinsing the foam off, even before I move to the agitation wash, I'm going to go ahead and just dry off those areas so that water is not sitting there. It makes my life a whole lot easier. Now, while we're talking about cleaning exterior areas and washing them, you guys can see me cleaning inside of the gas door there around the gas cap. The reason for that is because small areas like that will have water drip out of them constantly until that water is totally dry. And if you don't clean in that area, you'll have that drip of water be really dirty, and it'll get really dirty on the paint. Okay, the same is true sometimes of the engine compartment area. So a lot of times it's easiest, even if you're not detailing the engine, or even if you're not like detailing out at a high level, those smaller areas like inside of the gas cap door, those areas can be quickly blown out with a pressure washer and rinsed out so that when water does drip, inevitably, you're not having to fight that dirty water battle. The same is true, like I said, of the engine bay compartment. If I lift up the hood, I can blast my pressure washer kind of in the door jambs of the hood door, as well as the black trim that lines the bottom of the windshield. That area collects a lot of leaves, a lot of times, a lot of like dust particles, a lot of like little debris particles, and I can blast all that out before I start washing really quickly and easily if I just lift it up and blast it with my pressure washer. It's not dangerous at all. I'm not hitting the battery. I'm not doing any, thing that shouldn't be touched with water. I'm just talking about the door jambs of that area and the plastic trim at the bottom of the windshield. It just makes everything else later in the detail easier. Now, I already took care of the bugs when I was doing the traditional washing, but I always take my clay bar afterwards, if I'm going to take my clay bar anywhere, to the front section, because when you remove bugs, a lot of times you'll still have this kind of small staining left over that even when you run your hands over it, it feels like it's a part of the paint. It feels like it's etched into the paint. It feels like it's something that cannot be removed chemically, and a clay bar or even a clay mitt can come in just be so helpful in this area, because a lot of times with a car that's not detailed on a regular basis, your traditional bug removal process is just not enough. And so following up with that clay bar that just rips the rest of that tiny little bit of that bug particle off is so helpful. So guys, I'll link up products and tools to things that will help you do what I described in this video in the YouTube description box below. As always, these are just a couple areas that are really straightforward and simple, but if you don't have just a little bit of technique when you're trying to address them, it can make your life a lot harder, and it really doesn't have to. So hopefully this was helpful, and if it was, hit the like button, because it tells me that this was helpful and I can make more content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, a great detailer is always learning, and I will see you guys in the next video.